How does a band record a game-changing album only to fade into obscurity while collectors pay fortunes for rare copies? And how can a group secretly mold the future of rock yet remain absent from mainstream charts? These are the untold stories of forgotten legends. Outfits on the brink of stardom before fate took a sudden turn. Today we'll trace the footprints of 10 hidden gems from the 60s and 70s, each leaving a remarkable legacy beneath the radar of most music fans. But who best to start with than a fierce Detroit outfit that rattled the system with every raw chord? Let's dive into MC5, where rebellion met rock at full volume. Detroit's MC5 stormed the late 60s music scene with a ferocious energy that left listeners reeling. Their concerts were legendary, equal parts raw rock fury and radical politics, unleashing a rebellion that shook the status quo. Their album Kick Out the Jams stands as a landmark of proto-punk, even if controversy nearly eclipsed its impact. Critics were divided. Some applauded their candid approach, while others accused them of going too far. Major labels hesitated to sign a band so openly aligned with radical viewpoints. Still, MC5's audacious spirit resonates in every driving chord and rebellious lyric that helped pave the way for punk. If MC5 symbolized revolution, our next band demonstrated how a dash of whimsy and considerable talent could reshape rock in the most unexpected ways. Long before ELO's Jeff Lynne conquered the airwaves, the move laid the groundwork for quirky melodic rock experiments. In late 60s Britain, this band churned out hits like Flowers in the Rain, the first record ever played on BBC Radio 1. Their style bridged psychedelia, polished pop, and a proto-heavy metal edge, an unusual mix that intrigued critics. Yet a revolving door of members and management misfires limited their global breakthrough. Roy Wood's knack for inventive arrangements left the band brimming with potential they never quite capitalized on. Cult fans adored them for their bold forays into new sounds, but mainstream America barely noticed. Next up is a freewheeling outfit led by one of rock's true eccentrics, whose music pushed boundaries in even stranger directions. Captain Beefheart, real name Don Van Vliet, wasn't interested in making comfortable hits. He wove together Delta blues, free jazz, and mind-bending rock, famously showcased on the landmark album Trout Mask Replica. Critics either adored its innovative madness or dismissed it as incoherent noise. Beefheart's onstage persona could be as intimidating as his music. He demanded absolute dedication from his band, sometimes pushing members to exhaustion. Yet without this fierce approach, fans argue, we wouldn't have the avant-garde foundation that fueled many future alternative bands. Beefheart never aimed for chart dominance, preferring to provoke, challenge, and occasionally perplex his listeners. If Captain Beefheart thrived on the unconventional, our next band put raw grit and swagger at center stage, often to their own detriment. Launched by ex-Rolling Stones bassist Dick Taylor, the Pretty Things embodied a rougher, wilder take on British rock. Their 1968 album, SF Sorrow, might just be rock's first true concept album, predating The Who's Tommy. Despite this groundbreaking achievement, turmoil plagued the group. Label disputes, under-promotion, and frequent altercations derailed any shot at lasting superstardom. Critics admired their gritty blues rock approach, and younger garage bands devoured their rebellious style. Yet their luck never held, and they shuffled through lineups with alarming speed. Over time, they became cult icons, respected musicians who never quite broke the radio barrier. From one outrageous act to another, our next band took flamboyant live shows to extremes, blending satire, shock, and rock in unforgettable ways. If you remember 70s rock for over-the-top performances, the Tubes surely ring a bell. Known for mixing punk, glam, and elaborate stage theatrics, they set out to challenge musical and cultural norms. White punks on dope carved a satirical niche, mocking both rock excess and social stereotypes. Yet their on-stage antics, complete with wild costumes and risque sketches, pushed them beyond what mainstream venues felt comfortable hosting. Some found their shows hilarious, others were downright offended. Over time, the group did land modest hits like She's a Beauty, but they remained cult favorites rather than household names. Next, we'll slow the tempo a bit and venture into the shimmering realms of a band whose dreamy sound belied behind-the-scenes turmoil. Arthur Lee's band Love produced Forever Changes in 1967, a record that many critics consider a masterpiece of psychedelic folk rock. It's melodic and reflective, yet there's an undercurrent of tension in every track. Their erratic touring schedule, fueled by Lee's unpredictable behavior, kept them from reaching the broad audience they deserved. Nonetheless, future superstars, from Robert Plant to the Stone Roses, would praise Love as pivotal influences. While never a platinum-selling act, they generated a fervent following that cherished their mystical vibe. Even decades later, Forever Changes sits high on best of lists, holding its mystique as an album that's both timeless and eerily prescient. For all Love's nuanced beauty, the next band unleashed a raw garage rock punch that rattled the walls of every venue they played. Hailing from California, the Chocolate Watch Band brought a no-nonsense garage rock style that was equal parts brash and bluesy. Their stage shows burst with energy, and singles like Let's Talk About Girls captured the rebellious spirit of the era. Unfortunately, they found themselves at the mercy of producers who often replaced the band's own vocal and instrumental tracks with studio musicians to achieve more polished recordings. This meddling blurred their identity and stunted any chance of mainstream traction. Over time, though, collectors and 60s rock enthusiasts began seeking out their vinyl, celebrating the raw authenticity beneath the studio tampering. Ready for something even heavier? Our next band laid an early foundation for metal, though critics once found them too aggressive for comfort. Long before heavy metal fully roared, Sir Lord Baltimore showcased a blazing guitar attack and thunderous drumming that rattled the rock scene's foundations. Their 1970 debut, Kingdom Come, delivered a ferocity comparable to legends like Black Sabbath. Critics often dismissed them as too noisy and unrefined, but modern listeners have come to recognize this intensity as pioneering. Commercial success eluded them, perhaps because they arrived before mainstream audiences were ready for such unbridled heaviness. With blistering riffs and pummeling bass lines, they inspired countless metal acts, even as they remained largely unknown to broader rock fans. On the opposite end of the spectrum, our next outfit found notoriety by weaving political activism into some of the most unapologetic music of the time. The Fugs combined raw garage rock energy with radical, often irreverent political statements. They emerged from New York's counterculture scene in the mid-60s, spearheaded by poets and writers who wanted to shake society awake. Songs like CIA Man and Kill for Peace carried a confrontational stance that alienated mainstream radio and conservative listeners. Yet in counterculture circles, the Fugs became symbols of free speech and creative rebellion. Their live shows were chaotic celebrations of art, protest, and rock. Over time, the mainstream never embraced them, but their cultural and musical imprint can be traced through decades of rebellious punk and alternative acts. Now let's turn to a group that started as garage rock, but had the future superstar Todd Rundgren in its ranks. Before Todd Rundgren embarked on a successful solo career, he fronted Nas, a Philadelphia-based band that blended British invasion harmonies with American garage grit. Their track, Open My Eyes, became an underground favorite, loaded with bright guitar chords and layered vocals. Despite this promise, the group's momentum sputtered due to internal tensions and label issues. Rundgren eventually left to explore his own vision, while Nas's remaining members struggled to keep the spotlight. Today, their brief discography is treasured by collectors who love the band's clean production and melodic flair, and who appreciate catching a glimpse of Rundgren's early artistic spark. These 10 examples prove the underground is often just as thrilling as the mainstream, sometimes even more so. These bands might not have topped every chart, but their stories, sounds, and risks still echo throughout rock history. They remind us that great music doesn't always come wrapped in mainstream acceptance. For collectors, it's the thrill of discovering vinyl gems that few people even realize exist. For curious listeners, it's a reminder of how boundless creativity can flourish outside the spotlight. If any of these names spark your interest, dive into their albums and let the music speak for itself. And as always, feel free to share your favorite hidden rock treasures in the comments below.